Welcome everyone to the latest installment of the Virginia Main Street e-training series. I'm Kyle Meyer, Community Revitalization Specialist for DHCD's Community Revitalization Office, and I'll be the moderator and one of the speakers for today's webinar. A little housekeeping before we get started to reduce background noise. Be aware you are muted. Use the chat feature to ask questions. There will be a Q&A opportunity at the end. Following the webinar, please complete the evaluation, which will be emailed to you shortly after. There will also be web links to handouts in the docs. Your feedback is very important in that evaluation so that we can have a more impactful program and to better serve you. Information about trainings can be found through the DHCD and VMS websites, as well as the VMS blog, where you can also learn about downtown management best practices, local stories, and upcoming events across the Commonwealth. Sign up to receive posts in the upper right-hand corner of the landing page. Today's webinar focuses on the framework of the the Main Street approach, and highlights the strategies, activities, and outcomes of Virginia's Main Street communities. Now I'll introduce our first speaker, co-speaker, presenter here. It's Rebecca Rowe, Program Manager for the Community Revitalization Office. Take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on what is Main Street today. So we want to start by talking a little bit about the history of Main Street. You know, approximately 100 years ago, downtown or your Main Street district was the place where commerce happened. It's where people needed to be in order to, you know, buy goods and services, versus today, where we want downtown to be the center of commerce again and have it be the place that people want to be. Nowadays, of course, with our cars, we have options of where we do our shopping, but we really want downtown to be an inviting place that makes people want to come back again and again. So we're going to start our conversation by looking at one of our Virginia communities that is doing Main Street really well, and that is St. Paul, Virginia. And if you haven't been to St. Paul in the last 5 years, I can't recommend enough that you take a trip down there. You know, approximately 10 years or so ago, St. Paul was really thinking about what was next for them. And rather than looking backwards and trying to recapture something, they were looking forward. Who do we want to be in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 20 years? And they decided on a strategy of taking advantage of their natural resources and outdoor recreation and tourism and rebuilding their economy around that. Of course, their place on the Clinch River, that's why their tagline is St. Paul, a moving river experience. And they worked really hard on that strategy. They used a feasibility grant through Virginia Main Street to determine whether or not there was the market for a boutique hotel downtown. Turns out there was. They found a great space for it. This is now the Western Front Hotel, where you can take advantage of some of the other assets in the St. Paul area by renting an ATV right from the hotel and driving up into the Spearhead Trails. When you're done, just park it at the back of the hotel, and then you can walk a couple blocks over to their new brewery, visit their new bakeries, because last year they went through the Community Business Launch Program, and you know, every week it seems for a couple of months they were having new businesses open or expanding through that program. So they have really done a great job of revitalizing this district by using the Main Street approach. So what is Main Street? At its most basic, Main Street is economic development through historic preservation, although more and more we're kind of saying that it's economic development through leveraging your place-based assets, and of course a big part of that is going to be the historic built environment. So it's looking at that traditional downtown neighborhood and then really doing a grassroots revitalization strategy. So unlike economic development or community redevelopment that happens through a city department or the Chamber of Commerce or the EDA, where it's very top down, Main Street is very responsive to the community itself. In fact, community engagement is a cornerstone of the Main Street approach, so that it is grassroots and by, from, for the community. Some outcomes of a Main Street effort, we are looking for, again, that utilization of your historic assets, public-private collaboration, because really nothing happens without those partnerships. Preserving and creating jobs. Again, we are doing this for economic development. Having refreshed buildings is great, but if they're empty, they're not doing your community too much good. And the increase in tax revenue as well. You got to keep the city happy, having the cash registers ring, bringing in those sales taxes. Community pride. We want people to be really excited to say, I'm from Manassas, I'm from Bowling Green, I'm from Gloucester or Franklin or Danville, and have people say, oh, I've been to Danville, I can't wait to go back, we had a great time there. And that has everything to do with the vibrancy of the community and creating a regional allure and a sense of place. So again, you know, the way Main Street works for St. Paul is going to be different than Winchester, is going to be different than Fredericksburg, because these are all unique places taking advantage of their assets. So in Virginia, we have had Virginia Main Street in existence since 1985. We currently have 26 designated communities and approximately 90 commercial district affiliates. In 2018, we introduced the Virginia Downtowns tier, and that is for high-performing commercial district affiliates that are interested in kind of a startup mode, some really targeted services from Virginia Main Street and consultants to get your Main Street organization and efforts off the ground. And you can see we really cover the state, and I hope you see some communities on this map that you've been to. And you can see in the last 5 years, we really have seen a great return on investment in our communities. So for every dollar of public investment from Virginia Main Street, we are able to see a leverage of $16 of private investment in our communities. In the last 5 years alone, we've seen more than $400 million in total private investment in our designated Main Street communities, over 850 net businesses created, and more than 3,500 net jobs created as well.
So let's talk a little bit about this Main Street approach. When Main Street first started off in a pilot program in the late 70s and early 80s, the National Trust for Historic Preservation explored a comprehensive approach to bringing commerce down to that historic commercial district. And so to be comprehensive, they identified 4 important points. The Main Street approach. They are organization, design, economic vitality, and promotion. So organization, that's that sense of ownership, getting people involved, bringing in investment into the local program. So you bring all the sectors of the community together to build consensus and a common vision, and you assemble your resources and lead the revitalization. Design's about that physical space, the physical environment, and creating a sense of place within this commercial historic district. So design is responsible for improving physical elements while preserving and enhancing the community's authentic fabric. Economic vitality is about embracing the entrepreneur and your local businesses to create a sense of vitality. When you have storefronts full, certainly gives the downtown a much more vibrant feel. It gives the downtown gives visitors a reason to stick around and spend money. So economic vitality is about strengthening and diversifying the local economy by supporting existing base and encouraging strategic use of space and entrepreneurship development. Promotion is about marketing the downtown, getting out the word about how incredible your community is. So that's communicating that sense of activity. So promotion is about positioning the district as a center of activity, culture, commerce, and community life, market its assets, and promote its positive image. So just as a quick repeat, organization, that's about securing resources, both human and financial. Design is about embracing the heritage and aesthetics of the district, that physical environment. Economic vitality is about having strong, profitable businesses. And promotion is about marketing, building the buzz about how incredible the district is to visit and live in or nearby. So how do we get these 4 points to work together? It's easy. Usually what we see in an organization that is employing this is that sometimes those 4 points can be siloed. They're not working together towards the same thing. And in that organizational structure, we often see each of these 4 points in a committee structure. And we want those committees to work together. So prior to even getting started on Main Street, it's important to have a community vision. Listen to the community, hear those unheard voices, and make sure that you understand what the community finds most important about their historic downtown. And with that, you're listening to the important community assets. After all, this is asset-based economic development. What are those assets? We're talking about the buildings and architecture, any natural resources that are in or around that commercial district, tourism attractions, certainly highlighting those historic places within downtown, and possibly geographic proximity to a local larger metropolitan area, or to other small towns to create a network of revitalized downtowns. Lastly, in the very beginning, you certainly should have a market understanding. What kinds of businesses can be supported within your historic district? And what is missing from that environment that you want to attract? Who lives in the community? And what do they like to do? Where do they like to spend their money? What do they like to buy? That's that market understanding. Then that initial information informs a transformation strategy. And this is a overarching strategy that binds together the 4 points. And with any strategic plan, there are those priorities that inform the kinds of activities that an organization would take on. So that's a transformation strategy, a coined phrase by the National Main Street Center. Then once you employ a work plan around these 4 points, it's absolutely important to record success. How do you know if your program is being successful? And that's done through quantitative and qualitative outcomes. Quantitative is going to be those numbers, like what Rebecca referred to earlier in private investment, number of businesses opening up, and jobs that are associated, just as an example. And then those qualitative outcomes are those testimonials. What was the visitor experience like? And what do the visitors actually say about downtown? That also goes for any residents or businesses. What do they have to say about how awesome downtown actually is? And of course, in order to implement Main Street, you have to have that work plan. And that work plan includes activities that support the transformation strategy, are informed by the community vision and market, who's responsible for actually implementing these activities, what is the budget, where's the money coming from, what is the timeline for completion, and what are those metrics for success. So just as an example, to illustrate the process a little more, I'm going to use Lexington as a little bit of a community story where they have applied this Main Street approach really well. In the very beginning of their program, they took the time to listen to the community, and they did what they called a community forum. So it was a public event. They invited the community to be there to come and provide the community's input to what they find most valuable about the community and the downtown. They also did asset mapping with some of their community leadership, including the board, and identified those very specific assets that drive the economy in Lexington. We're talking about things like the universities that are nearby, VMI in Washington and Lee, the surrounding natural resources of the Shenandoah Valley. They also took a look at their market understanding. Of course, listening to the people is a great nod to what the market can support. Listening to people, the residents talk about what they find so valuable, and that's going to probably include some of their favorite businesses. That'll help understand the market, though market study like ESRI data can help to reinforce what the community believes. So one thing that we use when exploring the market are ESRI's tapestry segmentation, and these are psychographics. They talk about specific customer groups, and the primary ones specifically, what they like to shop for, what do they find most valuable in their lives, where do they like to spend their time, how much money do they make, how big are their families, all that important information to know about the customer and where they would like to spend money. So these transformation strategies are ready to use catalyst strategies based on a consumer or a product group. So you can see how that market's information will help to inform a transformation strategy. Actually, I'll talk about this in just a minute. But the example for transformation strategies might be agriculture, arts, a college town, which may be something that Lexington would take on, district workers and residents, if it's important to develop strategies around the locals, family friendly, if you're trying to attract the families into downtown. And then there's some product related ones like home furnishings. That makes me think about Farmville with Green Fronts in downtown, which is quite a presence and a major anchor to their district. So they have a lot of sort of spin-off businesses that are related to that. So they would take on home furnishings as a transformation strategy and take on activities that help support that. So if you take on a transformation strategy, think of it this way, is that if you're taking on College Town as a transformation strategy, you're using that college population and that college presence to strengthen the downtown and its market. So here's another example of tourism. If you embrace tourism as that driver for the local economy and to strengthen the downtown, looking at the 4 points, you take on these examples of activities. And design, you want a wayfinding system. You want passersby to be able to easily find their way into downtown and not depend so much on their phone. Of course, you want them to be safe and make it to your downtown safely. Organization is about the people. So creating a coalition of regional tourism professionals that can offer up their 2 cents and professional expertise to the kinds of decision making that will happen around the strategy. Promotion, that's about marketing. So develop a guide to local attractions. That might be a print piece that lists all of the buildings, all of the recreational opportunities, all of the historic sites and businesses, or it could be an online directory of some sort. And then economic vitality. They're kind of the numbers people. Of course, they're embracing the entrepreneur, but they're also the ones that are available, that are aware of the market. So a visitor's intercept survey, you certainly want to understand what is the visitor's experience like. Will they come back? Well, this visitor intercept survey might tell you that, and it may also tell you the areas where there are opportunities for making improvements for visitors. So to see this in application, Main Street Lexington embraced 3 transformation strategies that they connected to their vision. Lexington is bustling with people living downtown, so they're providing opportunities for local residents, so local living. Lexington is a hub of innovation, art, and technology, so there's that entrepreneur. And Lexington is a destination for day-long eventers, so there's your tourism. These are the kinds of activities that they've taken on under each. Upstairs and underground is an experience that they provide. It's a little bit of a social experience where they attract locals and developers to explore downtown through a guided tour. They go to existing upstairs lofts and apartments above storefronts, but then they also check out some of those other underutilized spaces that may be underground to some degree in basements. But they end this this tour with a social under their bridge. There is a very significant bridge in downtown. So it's a walking tour of downtown Lexington. Then they also created the Lexington Collaboratory. They wanted to embrace the entrepreneur and those makers, those who are making kombucha or pottery, or art for that matter. They have created the Lexington Collaboratory, a makerspace, a business incubator, and are using that in order to provide a common space for these makers to do their work and share in some resources to help them with the job. And then Lexington is a destination for day-long eventers. If you want some visitors to stick around, provide some sort of retail experience. So they created Destination Retail. And Destination Retail was a program that they implemented where there was a series of classes for their local businesses to learn about experiential retail. And throughout those classes, they developed a project, and then there was a small pitch night for a small grant to implement the ideas for experiential retail that came out of it. And then they were able to actually create experience and vibrancy in downtown from implementation of those ideas. The one thing that they got out of it that they weren't expecting, the entrepreneurs, the local businesses learned to work together. Which is sometimes unexpected. There's always a little bit of competition between those local businesses. So in this process, we want to measure progress. We want to know if we're being successful or not. So there's those standard reinvestment statistics, the private investment, tracking public investment, how many rehabilitation projects have happened in downtown, what is the Main Street organization's budget, and has it shown an increase over the years of existence? And continuing with this tourism transformation strategy example, there might be very specific metrics for that particular strategy. Like, what are the attitudes and perception of the district and monitoring those? What are the current shopping habits of your visitors? Where are they spending the most time and money? What are their zip codes? Where are they coming from? Which may inform some marketing strategy. And what is the square foot of retail space that is devoted to those visitor-related businesses so that you can help to support that rising cluster? With that, I'm going to pass it on to Rebecca.
So now we're going to get a little bit into each one of the 4 points, talking specifically about some activities that are happening around the state. So this is a little education and a little inspiration for everyone listening. Organizational structure for Main Streets in Virginia. This is really a good way to think about organizing your organization, if that isn't too redundant. So the board of directors really is, kind of the driving force behind the organization. They oversee the executive director or any paid staff. And the way that Main Street has been organized in the past is then you have a committee off of that board of directors that is specific to each one of the 4 points. So that is something we still see fairly often, although more and more we're seeing project committees as well. So if your organization has a 5K race or a specific festival or event or a marketing that you do, to maybe have a committee that is devoted specifically to that activity is sometimes more palatable for volunteers if they know exactly what they're working on and it's very focused for them. But it's really just a way to make sure that activities are hitting all of the points that make up the Main Street approach. And that governing body is very important. And then having the nonprofit status, of course, helps with fundraising with those tax deductions. So that's a great thing for our communities as well. So we talked about Main Street being a grassroots strategy and the role that community engagement plays in this. We see that playing out a number of ways in our communities. A few years ago, Harrisonburg found themselves with some resources that they wanted to use really wisely in the community, and they wanted to use them in a way that was responsive to what the community wanted to see. So they held this idea pop-up, and they took over this great big space and set up a number of stations around the room where you could respond to what you wanted to see in downtown Harrisonburg in various ways. So they had the idea incubator. You could write your own note card talking about what you wanted to see. You could respond to someone else's note card. They had big Pinterest boards around the room with pictures of different potential projects, streetscapes, murals, things like that people could respond to or add their own. They had activities for kids so that kids could participate in that as well. And they had ice cream and pizza donated for that function because, you know, if you feed people, they will come. So based on that pop-up, they have really been able to generate a very purposeful and responsive list of activities and organizational work plan that is really representative of what their community wants to see their Main Street organization do. So that's a really important thing to remember when you're talking about doing Main Street in your community. Another thing, you know, we've talked about the organization really drives the organization part of Main Street really drives the direction for the Main Street in that community. In Crozet in Albemarle County, they are a commercial district affiliate. They applied for a commercial district affiliate grant to really start putting those organizational documents and strategic plan together for the Downtown Crozet in Motion for Downtown Crozet initiative. And this is really going to help them as an organization get off the ground. There is some fundraising aspects of that as well as work planning so that they can be, again, very purposeful in meeting the mission of their organization and careful with their resources as they are bringing those into the organization and allocating them as well. Farmville did this great social media campaign. Actually, they've done a couple of really great social media campaigns built around their board members. So you'll see with some of these activities that there might be a design activity overlapping with promotion, there might be organization overlapping with economic vitality, and of course we want to see those things happening. So this one is actually a little organization and a little promotion. So to promote the organization and to promote their board members and what it means to each of them to be a board member, to be involved in Farmville Downtown Partnership, they had them respond to a couple of different questions. They did the Why Do I Serve campaign, and that was asking the board members, why they want to participate in Farmville Downtown Partnership, what is important to them. So we see one response: to see the core of our community thrive, because then the whole town will follow. And that is a great why for being on a board and being involved with Main Street. Another, involved in Farmville Downtown Partnership to help build a connection with Farmville and Centro Southside Community Hospital. So that's a great one as well, creating those partnerships. That should be a cornerstone of your organizational strategy. I think this year the question for their board members is asking them one word. You know, what is that one word that's the driving force for them in being involved with the organization? So that's what you see on the right side of the screen with some of those images of board members holding up their one word. So, you know, we talked too about the organization committee and the board really needing to have a focus on the resources of the organization. So that means fund development and fundraising, of course. And one thing that you will hear us say time and again is that your paid staff for a Main Street organization should never be in a position of spending their time fundraising for their own salary. You really want your paid staff to be the professionals. You want them to be the ones that are implementing that purposeful and meaningful work plan that has impactful activities on it. It's really the board and the organization committee that should be participating in most of the fundraising and fund development activities. So this is a couple of pages from Downtown Lynchburg Association's annual report. And you can see they are highlighting their Bluff Walk Bricks fundraiser, as well as their great big gift card giveaways. So, you know, two great promotions that they did. And then you can see in their 2018 income how diversified they are in those income streams. So there too, you know, we don't want to see too much of your income coming from events or too much coming from the municipality or from any one resource. When it comes to events, you know, one rainy year as we had in 2018 can have a significant impact on an organization's budget if they're not diversified. And likewise, if you are too dependent on the municipal funding, you know, the tide can turn for the organization depending on who's on city council or town council. So we really like to see a few different ways that the organization is raising funds. And one of the best ways to do that, again, is to have a really solid work plan built around impactful projects and activities.
All right, we're going to dive into some great design examples. So one of the first ones is a project in Culpeper. In 2011, 2012, they lost a building due to an earthquake. And for several years, the space, the lot where this building once stood, looked like this and was, as you can imagine, quite a liability to the downtown. This is what people are going to remember. So they knew that they needed to make this a priority. So they put together a project. They used Virginia Main Street Designated Community Design Services to develop a concept for the space. They got permission from the property owner and developed a temporary lease. And then they gathered all of the resources to actually implement the project. That included donating materials, as well as volunteer time and a Virginia Main Street downtown investment grant that are available to designated communities. And from that organizational effort, they get the E.B. Wood Community Park. And this is a park that is used often. I'm sorry, it's a picture that doesn't have any people in it, but it is used for lunch, dinner, on nice evenings, and apparently people do yoga in there as well. So it is a used space as opposed to what they had before. This is now an asset for the community. Marion also applied for a downtown investment grant for the designated communities. They had an area, it's a bit of a breezeway between a parking area and their main street. They wanted to make sure that it had that vibrant feel. So of course they added some pretty low-cost lights, and they created a Virginia love sign or love letter through the Virginia Tourism Corporation. So this project was actually funded by a Virginia Main Street downtown investment grant for about $5,000, a Virginia Tourism Corporation grant for $1,500, and then there was about $1,500 in volunteer in-kind for a total of or in-kind donation for $1,700 for a total of $9,700 for this project. And it's quite impactful. People take pictures of it, they've got a hashtag associated, and they use it in their marketing. This is Gloucester, and this is the gateway into Gloucester Village in Gloucester County. And as you can see, this is before the project started. They realized that through their village plan, that one of the priorities was to improve the two gateways leading into the Main Street commercial district. You know, these are unassuming. How would you know what's beyond that gateway? Would you know that there is a historic shopping center? Of course not. So they developed a goal to provide visual continuity between the gateways and to attract visitors to the downtown shopping, dining, and historic sites. And this is what that end product looks like. The first phase of the project included the installation of 11 banner poles, the new Virginia Main Street sign, landscaping, and brick pavers. Additionally, the trust, and that's the Gloucester Main Street Trust, the Main Street organization that leads a lot of these Main Street efforts. The trust and environmental planning firm worked with the county and a local garden club to relocate existing public art to the sites and planted 8,000 daffodils, daylilies, roses, and native ornamental grasses. And it absolutely is a clue as to what's beyond this district. Something very similar, certainly you want to have an attractive gateway, but what are the wayfinding signs or those cues as to what is beyond that? So Bristol realized that they needed clearer wayfinding in order to attract passersby to their downtown, to the birthplace of country music museum, to the historic downtown in general, and to some of the historic hotels. So Virginia Main, let's see, Believe in Bristol is the Main Street organization. They applied for a downtown investment grant for the amount of $20,000 for the exclusive purpose of funding development, manufacturing, and installation of a wayfinding system for the city of Bristol's historic commercial district. And this was matched with local funds as well. As you might know, these wayfinding systems are expensive to design, and then the fabrication of the signs and installation can be expensive as well. So there's probably these kinds of projects are always funded from several different sources, sometimes VDOT, sometimes CDBG grants, sometimes just capital improvement funds for the locality. So the following installation of the wayfinding system, Believe in Bristol actually did a survey to the downtown visitors and merchants to determine their effectiveness, and found that this is actually having an impact on visitor spending in downtown. So there is value to having these kinds of pointers to get to that commercial center. Now we're on to some economic vitality examples.
So this is going to be a greater and greater area of emphasis for Main Street communities. You know, again, thinking back to talking about developing resources for your organization, if the Main Street organization can really work with the local economic developers, then this is an area of revenue for them as well, like in downtown Whiteville. And this page is from Downtown Whiteville Inc.'s website. And at first glance, it might be kind of a dry slide for you, but if you are someone who is thinking about buying a building or starting a business in downtown Whiteville, then this is in fact a really great web page, an exciting web page to go to see the different resources that they are able to offer on a local level, as well as providing information on state and federal funding for those projects as well. And Downtown Withville Inc. really works closely with their municipality to provide some of those services as that first stop for people looking to do economic development in their downtown district. So again, Withville, again, being very participatory in this process, they know what their demographics are, they have a recruitment guide, they know what industries they are trying to recruit for in their district, and then having that information right there at your fingertips for people who are looking to do business development in that area. This is just such a great resource for people coming into the community, or maybe people who are already in the community, to know what is available to them when they want to start a business. And then, you know, the household income and tourism impact, again, great to know depending on the kind of business you're looking to open. Who is your market going to be, and how do you best meet that market demand? In Danville, they really decided in this last year to focus on an area of their district called North Union. And this was the historic African-American commercial corridor in the River District. And the city of Danville partnered with the River District Association. They both put money towards facade improvements along this corridor. The River District Association applied for a downtown investment grant from Virginia Main Street and received that, so those funds were all leveraged together. They also utilized the design contract with Fraser Associates to do design renderings for those building owners. And then they had this additional opportunity last year to participate in the Partners in Preservation crowdfunding grant program, and they were competing nationally to be in the top 10 vote getters for $150,000 in grants for that area as well. That particular, the Partners in Preservation focused on 206 and 208 North Union specifically. They did win that money, and that's going to have a great impact on that district. So all of those physical improvements that they were focusing in that area kind of culminated in doing their community business launch. And that's a grant program also run through our office that is available to all communities, not just Main Street communities, although it's very complementary with Main Street, that you know, helps put together approximately 8 weeks of business training classes. Then at the end, there's a pitch night, and grant awards are made to those participants. And again, because they really focused the community business launch on this North Union area, all of this is going to come together to make a big impact on, you know, a space in their downtown that's approximately 3 blocks long. So being so purposeful in layering all of these different resources in that area is just going to make that strip a very different place a year from now than it is today. We're so happy to see activities like that. South Boston, not too far from Danville, they did a community business launch a couple of years ago. And what they have decided to do as a follow-up activity is to really work with the entrepreneurs who are existing there, those who started small businesses as a result of that program, to make sure that they have the continuing education, the continuing mentoring, the continuing resources in place to have a really sustainable and viable business for the long term. You know, we love going to ribbon cuttings, but we don't want to go to a ribbon cutting at the same building every year. We really want to see those businesses stay in business and grow their product lines, grow their inventory, grow their staffing, and, you know, just be a great cornerstone of that community. So their Keep Entrepreneurs program worked again with retail and restaurant groups, small business financials, understanding the role of credit, marketing, and so on to make sure that their local entrepreneurs just have a lot of great resources to keep their businesses thriving. All the way at the top of the state, Manassas was instrumental in putting together Centerview's co-working space in their downtown district. And you can see a networking opportunity happening there. And I can tell you, if you are sitting at the countertop there along the right-hand side, you have such a great view of their district, and it's great people watching while you're doing your work. So with the co-working, the Manassas Main Street organization also offers classes in the evenings, again, in support of their entrepreneurs. And it's such an important thing to keep your local entrepreneurs strong and provide them with the resources that they need. And sometimes, you know, with the co-working spaces, maybe what that entrepreneur needs is not a storefront. Maybe they just need a desk a few hours a week. They need access to a printer a few times a month, as well as those classes. And that's where the co-working spaces, and again, understanding your market, understanding who your entrepreneurs are and what services they need, and then having the business plan for a co-working space or an incubator or an accelerator to meet those needs.
So we're going to talk about some examples in the promotions arena. This is an image of Fredericksburg, Virginia Main Street's branding. So Fredericksburg became a designated community in 2013. And as a newly designated community, there is a suite of services for 3 years to help with a strong startup. And one of those things is part of investing in the branding, so that there is a strong image for the local program to launch from. So in this, their services, they hired a advertising firm to come up with their brand. And their brand is not only just the logo, but it's the image that reflects the district. And it's often seen in the logo and tagline designs, concept for banners and wayfinding and print collateral, as well as a website. Now, you've got to implement this stuff because the consultant there is just giving you the images and the look and feel of the district. So Fredericksburg, Virginia Main Street applied for a downtown investment grant for the amount of $25,000 for the exclusive purpose of developing a website and marketing plans that include open late flags, branded gift cards, decals, banners, and a really cool project, the hashtag Love FXBG cards for the Fredericksburg Historic Commercial District. After that, it was followed by a launch of this downtown business owner and stakeholder brand ambassador program to enhance the commercial activity investment for the commercial districts. They really have put this brand to work in many different ways. Stanton Knights wanted to really attract people to downtown for a vibrant evening. Now, this information came from a community perception survey that the locals, the visitors, they wanted to see more businesses open at night and have more activity. So they targeted the first Friday and created a monthly event to encourage and support businesses that remain open after 8 p.m. So they have a series of grants, one for each local business to throw some sort of in-store event each first Saturday of the month. So this gave a really nice distribution and highlight of the local businesses in downtown. So one of the most successful events is pictured here, a local business in downtown called Cherish Every Moment. The organizers wanted to create an event that celebrated the season by giving to others in need. So they created an old-fashioned Christmas complete with caroling and tree lighting ceremony in the wharf, hot drinks and cookies, and very special activities for charities throughout downtown. And they created the spindle tree contest, where they made and sold 31 trees made from recycled spindles to downtown businesses, and each business decorated their tree in honor of a local charity. And photos of the trees are featured on Facebook, and you can easily find that by Googling Stanton Nights. And the community was invited to vote on their favorite tree. And the winner was announced at the Christmas tree lighting on December 8th, and an $800 donation went to the winning charity. So this is a great way to bring together not only highlighting the for-profit businesses, but then also embrace the local nonprofits. And here's a little simpler restaurant promotion that Blackstone, Downtown Blackstone Inc. started last year, and they actually just finished their second iteration of this. They're going to make this one of their key events. The idea here is that they sell tickets for locals or any visitor to participate in a sandwich sampler competition. So local businesses had sandwiches available to sample by those who bought tickets, and then they vote on the one that they found to be their favorite. The winner this time was a handmade strawberry ice cream sandwich at the 2018 Sandwich Sampler Competition, which sounds delicious. So this year was just as much of a success, if not more. They made money on the event. So they're going to keep this one going and continue to highlight their businesses. And the businesses offer some incentives to bring people back later on after this particular sandwich sampler event is over. Now, events are a very important part of the promotions activity, but they're not everything. They take a lot of human and financial resources to implement. So if a Main Street organization is going to take on a festival, certainly focus on maybe one signature event so that you can focus on other areas of the 4 points to be comprehensive throughout the year. So Ashland's Train Days become their signature festival that highlights the transportation history. Of course, they have train tracks and trains that come down the very middle of their Main Street. So the event includes music and games, of course, model trains, children's train rides, food, and railroad-related vendors and displays. So whenever you take on a festival, think about why. Why take on this event? And make sure they are purpose-driven and, of course, connected to those transformation strategies. It's important to know the why before you get too deep into the planning. Why a special event? Well, it supports our organizational mission, it supports our transformation strategy, and think about what are those customers that you want to attract? What is the product that you want to attract them to? And thinking about the why first will better compel the change that for your vision for the Main Street. So let's talk about Virginia Main Street a little bit. And there's 3 ways to participate in Virginia Main Street. The sort of the entry level or least amount of commitment is our DHCD commercial district affiliate. There's a non-competitive application, and this connects you to learn a community to learn about the best practices and connect to a network of peers. As a commercial district affiliate, they have access to the Virginia Main Street staff technical assistance, as well as our quarterly training calendar throughout the year. The highest level of participation as a Virginia Main Street designated community, and it is a competitive application process. It's a lengthy application that really digs in deep to the community's history and plans for revitalization, talking deeply about the organizational structure and where funds are coming from, and connection to regional and local economic development strategies. As a designated community, it is expected for those communities to become a national Main Street accredited community, and that accreditation is based on 10 criteria. So I would say at this point, instead of me diving into those things, to go to the National Main Street website, and that's mainstreet.org, and explore what that accreditation is about. It's based on best practices and can certainly be used as motivation for how to structure and the kinds of priorities that a Main Street effort should take on. Now, there's a mid-tier part of our program that we just started. It's called Virginia Downtowns, and its focus is to, one, help a high-performing affiliate to get ready for designation. It's also used as a learning lab for regions or districts that don't fit into the current Virginia Main Street requirements. So we're looking in that regards to work for some of the larger communities, because we work with rural communities and are under 70,000 respectively. So some of those larger communities have some neighborhood commercial districts that may be ideal to explore Main Street and get involved in the Virginia Main Street program. So those are our 3 levels. The Virginia Downtowns pilot is a rolling application as well. So you can check out all of those opportunities through the Virginia Main Street program guidelines that is available on the DHCD website. So just go to dhcd.virginia, spelled all the way out, .gov for a few more details. So there's that website reiterated again. You can find that there. There are a lot more programmatic specifics that can be found at DHCD's website. Virginia Main Street also has its own blog at virginiamainstreet.com, where you can read about what other communities are doing, find out about upcoming trainings, and just connect to the best practices of the Virginia Main Street Network and nationally. Soon we will have our training opportunities listed there. We'll have an additional tab soon. And of course, Downtown Intersections is our next training coming up, July 22nd through 24th in Lynchburg. And this is our Main Street statewide conference where we will have several different tracks in a traditional conference atmosphere. We'll focus on economic vitality activities in what is the other one? Economic vitality and design. Excuse me, sorry for that little brain blip. And then the practitioner studio, which will take deep dives on specific projects. So you'll be able to talk to the professionals involved in that. There will be a pitch competition in order to win $5,000 to implement that, as well as our Virginia Main Street Merit Awards luncheon to cap it all off. Please check out the Main Street America website. That's the National Main Street Center's website at mainstreet.org. If you really want to dive into implementing this Main Street stuff, of course, they're the overarching national organization that we partner with on its implementation. And they have many other resources available on their website, as well as membership opportunities with extended resources. With that, we're all done. So here are our program contacts. We encourage you to reach out to the team. Rebecca Rowe is our program manager. She oversees several programs. Joy Rumley is in the southwest region of Virginia. Diana Schwartz is in southern region, and myself, I oversee and work with communities north of Route 60, so actually a little dividing line for the northern part of Virginia. Thanks for joining us, and please contact us if you have any questions. Thanks so much.